Welcome back, everyone. Today I have paintings 14, 15, and 16 in my 60 paintings in 30 days challenge. And today is another theme. I decided to do just paintings of trees, just a close-up of a tree, so rather than a landscape. And I wanted to really kind of play with the personality of each tree. I kind of feel like trees are almost like a human face, right? The differences in the tree, the different shapes and colors and, everything about the tree kind of gives you a bit of a sense of an emotion or a mood or character, personality, whatever. And I think that's why I like to paint trees so much. It's, a very recognizable element that can convey just about anything you want to convey. So remember, I've had a couple of questions, but just to go over it again, this month I am doing a little challenge for myself. So I've had a couple people be confused as to why I'm not giving instruction. It's really impossible for me to give instruction while I'm painting like this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm about to do. I don't know what's going to happen when I'm about to do what I'm going to do. I'm not starting with any kind of an idea or a goal. I'm just sitting down and grabbing a color that kind of speaks to me in that moment, making snap decisions and just going with it to see what happens. I challenged myself this month to paint 60 of these little paintings in 30 days. So that's what's happening here. I promise once this month is over, we will go back to doing some actual tutorials. And I am probably going to do a few more concept lessons than what I've done in the past. I'm probably not going to do strictly step by step. We're going to paint this painting step by step today. I mean, we'll still do those, I'm sure, but my goal for you is really my goal for myself, and that is I want to help you learn how to be the artist that you want to be. I can teach you how to make a specific painting, but just because you learn how to make that specific painting doesn't necessarily mean that you learned anything that you can take into your own painting. You'll pick things up here and there, and it will definitely get you some practice. Not to say that tutorials are not helpful things, but I want to help you take it to wherever it is that you want to take it. And some of that is, it comes from concept tutorials. So we're going to do some of those as well. Here very soon. I've also had a lot of people say they're super excited and interested to learn more about watercolor after watching some of these videos that I've been doing. So here very soon I'm going to do that super basic beginner watercolor video that I promised you. And then we will move on. We'll do some more acrylic stuff, or maybe we'll try some oil stuff. I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of expanding what I'm doing. So, oh, Mr. Moon really wants to say hi. He's being very, very loud. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm going to expand what it is that I do for you. So it's not going to be all acrylic all the time, all step-by-step tutorials. So hopefully that doesn't disappoint you. But if it does, I understand. Hopefully, there's things that you want to learn beyond what we've done in the past as well. So hopefully you'll stick around for that. These trees were a lot of fun, and I'll probably do another one of these videos of just trees. The first one that is already over, that was actually my favorite one of this set. I loved the composition of that one. It felt so effortless, the way that it spread upward, and it felt like the balance of the foliage of the tree was really nice over the asymmetrical trunk. I just really, really liked that one. So that may be one that I try to put into a larger painting. So I think there's probably a couple of these that I'm gonna do and develop into actual full-size paintings, and I may be able to do step-by-step tutorials of those. So if there's a painting in this series that you are really into, let me know, because if it happens to be one of the ones that I was super into, then I might turn it into a tutorial at some point. So we'll see. This one, there's a couple things about this painting that I'm not in love with that honestly bug me pretty bad. But overall, I was pretty happy with this one. There's a couple things about it that I really like too. So that's like I was saying in the last video, just because there's something about one of these little paintings that you're doing, you know, if you're doing this challenge along with me, just because there's something about one of them that you don't like, doesn't mean you should scrap it or that it's not worth referring back to at some point. There's always going to be something in a painting, for me anyway, that I can look at and say, yeah, but I really like this element and I want to remember that. I don't know why, but for some reason, I have a hard time making very crisp, deliberate leaf shapes. Sorry. Mr. Moon is super noisy today. Hello, can you just lay down and be quiet while I'm talking to the people? I have a hard time doing very crisp, very deliberate leaf shapes in trees, and I don't know why. I always end up blurring everything out into oblivion. So on this one, I was really trying to give the outer edges on parts of these trees some very defined leaf shapes, crisp edges, rather than, you know, wiping them out and so they were completely blurry. So I think that I was too focused on that, on my edges, and that's why a couple of other things got away from me in this one. But I like that I did get some very distinct edges on here, and it was good practice for me to do that. So that's one of the things in this one that I do really like. I also like the ground. I like the colors on the ground. I like the way the brush strokes kind of help indicate that the ground that the trees are on is raised up a little bit. It looks like where the trees are, it's kind of pushed up, and then the ground kind of slopes down into the left from the trees, and I really liked that. It's always important to tell yourself what you like in your painting. It's really, really easy for us to look at our painting and say, ugh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is ugly, this sucks. But, and I'm not saying it's not important to recognize those things, because that tells you what you need to work on. I think it's important that we recognize them in a kind way, but, you know, pointing out, I don't like this part to yourself reminds you, I need to work on doing that better. But it's also really important that you go through and you say, yeah, but I really like this, and this was good, and I'm impressed by this, because that reinforces those things to you. You know, if I point out I really like the way the ground turned out on that painting, I'm probably more likely to take that into another painting and do that again because I was pleased with it. While at the same time, I may say, hey, I want to work on the edges of my tree leaves. which would be something that I maybe didn't like from a previous painting. So for every one thing that you tell yourself you don't like in your painting, find at least one thing that you honestly do like. And here I am with my black and white painting at the end, like I do to kind of reward myself for using a little bit brighter colors. I think the colors in the other paintings were colors I feel fairly comfortable with, so I didn't get too uncomfortable with my bright colors in my last one. This painting, I feel like it started out really good and then I overworked it a little bit. So I like all the textures and everything that I got in this. There's definitely things about it that I don't like at the end, but I think that it was a good start and it's definitely something that I would like to revisit. Oh, and there's my palette knife. I don't think I've used a palette knife in any of these videos yet. I love to use palette knife with watercolor. And I do actually have a video somewhere back there. If you go look at my watercolor playlist, I have a video where I showed you how I use a palette knife with watercolor, and I'm sure we'll do it again very soon. But yeah, I love to use palette knife with watercolor. If you've never tried palette knife with watercolor and you do paint with watercolor a bit, try it. It's super fun and you get textures and looks that you just can't get with a brush. My one caution with using a palette knife and watercolor is to try not to gouge your paper too much. A super light scratch, just barely touching the paper with the edge of the knife, is enough to give you a nice, hard, crisp line. And otherwise, just using the flat of the palette knife and just really touching the paint. Don't press down into the paper. Watercolor paper is delicate and it really doesn't take a lot to kind of pill it and, tear it up. So be very gentle when using a palette knife with watercolor, but it's absolutely something you should try. And I promise to give you a good demonstration of palette knife and watercolor. I love asymmetrical trees with a really pleasing balance. So what I mean by that is like the first painting in this video, the tree trunk leaned heavily to the left and the foliage came over heavily on the right. And I felt like it had a really nice balance. I started out kind of going for that in this one, but it's really easy to lose sight of that. And I definitely did. So I kind of felt like that was one of the things about this painting that I didn't like. It didn't have that windy feel to it like I wanted because it ended up being kind of straight up and down. But those are things that, I'll take to the next painting. When I decide I want to do this again, I'm going to have a heavier focus on the composition of the tree. I'm going to have a heavier focus on a lot of the textures that I have in here because I felt like they were super fun and I felt like I could have pushed the boundaries of those textures a little bit more. I've also had people ask if a challenge like this can be done with acrylic. Absolutely. You absolutely can. I've been thinking maybe to a smaller degree, maybe I'll do a similar challenge to this with acrylic and maybe even oil very soon. So I probably won't do 60 paintings, especially acrylic and oil. I feel like that takes a little bit more time, a little bit extra cleanup and preparation and everything that goes into actually painting it. So it will be a much smaller challenge than 60 paintings in 30 days. But yeah, I very well may do a similar challenge and probably share that with you guys in one way or another, and hopefully you would do those right along with me. So make sure that you follow my Facebook and my Instagram account. Just search for Painting with Jane. And I'll keep you updated there on, clearly the different videos that I'm doing, but any different challenges that I attempt. I will share that there, whether or not I'm sharing it here on YouTube. Gotta add more gouache here. I love, love, love it. I've thought about maybe getting some color gouache, but I don't know how I would use that. I think I like the white gouache because it, in a single layer, it dries super transparent and everything that's under it kind of glows through in a ghostly type of way. And I really like that. But if I need one of my colors to be opaque, just adding a little bit of that color to the white gouache gives me, an opaque kind of flavor of that color. And so far that's been enough for me. So that's why I only have white gouache. I think this is where I kind of started losing the shape of my tree and it got a little off balance and just felt kind of awkward to me. But this was getting kind of late in the day and I was pretty much done painting for the day. Emotionally, I was like, I just got to get this one done so I can go, do whatever else I needed to do that day. I've loved hearing everybody who's been trying watercolor because of this challenge. I've loved hearing your experience with it. So if you have decided to give watercolor a shot or maybe a second shot because of these videos, let me know and let me know how that experience is going for you and how you're enjoying it. I always forget how much I love watercolor. I get away from it for a while and then I come back to it and I fall in love with it all over again. I know it can be intimidating when you don't really know what you're doing with it, but I think if you just let that intimidation go and just play to have fun, you'll love it just as much as I do, and suddenly you'll realize, hey, I know what I'm doing now. I can actually make it do what I want it to do. But just have fun with it. That's the best way to learn. So thank you everyone for watching today's video. The next video I have coming up for you is actually 4 paintings, and I think there's a couple in there that you'll really like. There's a couple in there that I'm pretty excited about. So I hope that you all have a beautiful day. And Mr. Moon says thanks for watching too. And I will see you next time.